accusing him of being a terrorist or of being a sympathizer with terrorism simply because he says, I have to stand up for my people.
URP disowns Duale's comments as Jamlet Kamau reports the majority leader to the CID.
We are very concerned at the harassment which is being meted to the people in Isli.
Inspector Generali amehakikisha kwamba wanapata chakula, wanapata maji, wanapata pia sehemu za kujihifadhi.
Police defends detention of Isli suspects with promise of raids in other areas.
And the government supports Pusetu launch as Kotu cries foul.
And biggest mob ever in Bungoma town stopped from lynching robbery suspects.
This is KTN Prime with Nancy Kachungira and Ben Kitili.
The security crackdown in Isli continues even as it raises more questions than answers.
And with a heavy dose of politics seeping into the crisis, Kenyans remain unsure of their safety.
Tonight, Tide of Terror continues on KTN's special coverage of the security crisis.
So in our latest update, the United Republican Party has distanced itself from its majority leader, Aden Duale, over alleged remarks of the state profiling Muslims in the war on terror.
But a section of northeastern parliamentarians have backed the majority leader for standing up for the community.
This comes as Kigumo MP Jamlet Kamau lodged a complaint at the Criminal Investigations Department to probe Duale over alleged misconduct.
Although Nairobi's Isli area and its neighborhood have borne the brunt of incidents of grenade attacks, the police operation to flash out terror suspects in that area is now threatening to split the Jubilee government. Kigumo MP Jamlet Kamau has recorded a statement at the Criminal Investigations Department headquarters against Majority Leader Aden Duale. Duale is accused of sending him offensive text messages over Jamlet's support of government's affront on terror. The text messages reportedly read in part, "The zeal I have defended the Uhuru government is the same zeal I will defend my people who are Kenyans. Come out, don't hide behind some dark forces." End of quote. Then a combative one reads, "They're making me very popular with the Muslim community and making the president's community look very bad in the eyes of Kenyans. Wait, I come from Turkey and show you how ethnic chauvinistic your skin is made of." End of quote. Allegedly, Duale went ahead to say, "We are not guests of Jubilee as you think, but shareholders and founders." Allegations Duale has denied.
And we are telling him very clearly that if he continues in that direction, he need not resign because we force him out ourselves as members of Jubilee.
The antagonism has roped in a section of northeastern parliamentarians who have defended the majority leader. The MPs say the ongoing war on terror has been reduced to profiling of Muslims, and that Duale was audacious enough to tell of his administration.
Accusing their colleagues who are members of parliament and no less than the House majority leader, they are accusing him of being a terrorist or of being a sympathizer with terrorism simply because he says, I have to stand up for my people. Where are we heading this country?
Where Duale is not about to resign from majority leader, we will not allow him to resign, but we will not stop along with him to discuss the problems and the plight of our people.
But Duale's party, URP, has distanced itself from the majority leader's remarks criticizing his own government. The party is saying the sentiments were entirely personal opinions. The party chairman says URP is a party of all communities and religions. The party does not stand with a single community. It is a party for Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and every Kenyans. URP is all inclusive. Through his lawyer, Cecil Miller, Jamlek Kamau wants the police to obtain Duale's phone records from his service provider to launch criminal investigations against the National Assembly Majority Leader. Samugina, KTN.
Now, the matter has triggered a reaction from the TNA party, URP's alliance partners in the Jubilee coalition. In a veiled warning to Duale and other members of parliament, TNA has said leaders should desist from making remarks that only serve to divide Kenyans along religious or ethnic lines. TNA has also said the spat between the majority leader and the Kigumo MP, Jamlek Kamau, should be taken as a personal issue and not a matter between TNA and URP or Duale. The party has asked Duale and Kamau to sort out the matter privately without dragging the Jubilee coalition into it.
Well, as a political angle has now been added to the security issue, we want to ask your opinion on the big Q tonight. Do you think that Aden Duale should be investigated for misconduct? That is the question.
Yes, indeed. Give us your thoughts on that latest spat in the Jubilee coalition. Text us your yes or no response, plus a brief comment to the number 22155. Join the conversation via our social media platforms on Twitter. Our handles are at Ben_Kitili, at Kachungira, and at KTN Kenya. Shall be giving you those poll results as well as read you some of your comments during this live newscast.
And as we move on, we stay with the war on terror. The police are holding 447 people for interrogation in the continuing security operation in Eastleigh. The group is being held after a screening process that has seen the profiling of at least 3,000 people. And as Rita Tinina tells us, the Operation Usalama Watch Secretariat has defended the police's action of locking out aid agencies from the Kasarani Stadium, where those arrested are being held.
It is such scenes at the Kasarani Stadium that have seen the government come under criticism. Human rights organizations and a section of political leaders are accusing the police of being inhumane in their treatment of those arrested.
We are very concerned at the harassment which is being meted to the people in Eastleigh.
The Operation Usalama Watch Secretariat maintains the basic needs of all those arrested are being met.
Stadium ya Kasarani ni stadium ya kimataifa. Iko na eneo la kutosha. Inspector Generali amehakikisha kwamba wanapata chakula, wanapata maji, wanapata pia sehemu za kujihifadhi.
At least 3,000 people have been screened at Kasarani. 447 are being held for further interrogation. 69 have been arraigned in court for being in the country illegally or being outside gazetted refugee centers.
Operation hii hainui kulenga watu wa jamii fulani, watu wa dini fulani, ama watu kutoka nchi fulani.
Critics have accused police of misconduct in the operation with allegations of corruption and sexual harassment.
Haya malalamiko hayajatufikia rasmi.
Efforts by agencies and organizations such as the Kenya Red Cross and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to access the Kasarani Stadium have been blocked by the police.
Lakini hii ni operation ya polisi ambayo haijashindwa ama polisi hawajashindwa kudhibiti ama kuhimili operation hii. Mashirika haya yatakuja, kwa mfano shirika la kukabiliana na wakimbizi litakuja pindi tutakapokuwa tumepata wakimbizi ambao wametoka katika kambi zao wamefika Nairobi.
The security operation aimed at, among other things, detecting illegal aliens and apprehending those suspected of engaging in terror activities is set to continue, with police planning to roll it out to other areas of the city of Nairobi. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Let's take you from Kasarani to Eastleigh. And Nairobi's Eastleigh, that is now the center of intense security operations, was once a safe haven for Nairobi's middle-class professionals. So what happened along the way to earn this growing Nairobi estate its current dubious reputation? KTN's Asha Mulu spoke to some of Eastleigh's oldest residents.
Eastleigh's reputation precedes it. A diaspora-fueled economy mushrooming by the day. But its narrow, dusty streets, heavily patrolled by armed policemen, tell of Eastleigh's new image. Gradually, it's living up to its nickname, Little Mogadishu.
This one was not there, it was shot. All of this street was shot.
This new repute does not, however, sit well with Eastleigh's oldest tenants. Mohammed Osman, or Mzungu as he's known on these streets, moved to Eastleigh more than 20 years ago. He says he can hardly recognize his neighborhood.
Eastleigh was very nice at the time, 1994. I was 14 years old. by then. When we came to Islay, security was very nice. We were playing in the streets. We were happy.
Benson Musyoka has run his little business at this corner in Islay's 12th Street for the last 15 years. He, just like Mohammed, remembers a different Islay.
Islay ilikuwa tunaishi lakini ilikuwa bado wa Somali moja tu walikuwa wadogo.
Islay was founded in 1921, and back then the colonial government was allotting Nairobi's estates according to racial profiling. And Islay was allotted to the Asians and elite Africans who were working as builders, clerks, and shoemakers. But by 1963, when Kenya attained its independence, that Asian population moved out. Up until today, when Islay is predominantly and almost exclusively occupied by Somali immigrants. According to the UNHCR's latest figures, Kenya currently hosts more than 430,000 registered Somali refugees. In Dadaab camp, 343,694 refugees live there. 54,346 live in Kakuma camp. Those known as urban refugees, 32,473 of them live in Nairobi. It's believed that a majority of these live in Islay, making it easier for unregistered refugees to infiltrate that area.
Hapo ingawa hawezi kujua ni nani na nani. Hapo tunaishi katikati yao, Mungu ndo anatulinda.
The refugees which were here in Islay, there were about 4,000 to 5,000, and most of them, they were the ones with the mandate, so they were waiting for their flight. There was no disturbance.
The government agrees with Mohammed. The current operation seeks to separate Kenyan Somalis from the asylum seekers. The state has already directed that all refugees return to the camps.
Kenya has the right, they are the government. If the person doesn't have the right to live in Nairobi, I think they are right, yes.
We are Somali Kenyans, we know each other. These other people who came recently, we don't know them, to be frank.
This transformation of what was once a small estate in Nairobi has left many with mixed reactions. For some, Little Mogadishu is a heavy threat to national security. But for others, Islay is simply an elaborate transnational business hub tying Nairobi to her northern neighbors. Ashamwilu, KTN, Islay.
85 Somali nationals are set to be deported to Somalia tomorrow morning. They were identified through the ongoing screening of illegal foreigners at the Kasarani Stadium.
Heather Mohammed's daughters make their way to the airport police station, hoping to catch a glimpse of their mother, who was arrested 3 days ago during the Islay operation. They are not the only ones here. Reports from the families of the arrested indicate that they had been transferred from Kasarani Stadium to the airport police station, where they await to be repatriated to Somalia.
And they took her to Kasarani police station, and she's also having a mandate, UN mandate, and I have also seen some other people who have the mandate, and they didn't say anything to them. They just let them go, but I don't know the reason why they took my aunt here.
Somalia's ambassador to Kenya, Mohammed Noor, is busy with a number of families seeking answers and clarification on when their next of kin will be released. It has been a busy week for the ambassador.
She told us when she called us that they're taking us to the airport and back to Somalia, so we just came here to find out what's going on.
As an embassy, we came here to verify if they are Somalis. We have talked to them. They say voluntarily they want to go back home. And the ones who have refugee status were released.
According to the ambassador, over 85 Somali nationals have been held at the airport police station and are set to leave the country at 6 a.m. Wednesday.
And I was assured yesterday by the Cabinet Secretary of Interior that this operation is not targeted only Somalis. It's all foreigners who are here in Kenya, not in Nairobi, and all the places. And of course, most of them, they are Somalis. But as of yesterday, they've been vetted and checked, and over 1,000 Somalis have been released.
The Embassy of Somalia has also said that they will cater for the travel expenses. Ian Wafula, KTN.
You're watching KTN Prime. This is Tide of Terror, continuing special coverage of the security crisis. Shortly, we shall take a look at the issue of religion, terror and race. But first, we change gears briefly. And the stage is set for a battle of the unions after the country's second national labor union, Pusetu Kenya, was launched today. Pusetu now rivals the Central Organization of Trade Unions, KOTU. The two unions are battling to host the Labor Day celebrations, and as KTN's Wilkista Nyabo reports, the battle is on.
The battle for supremacy is on. On one side, there is the Central Organization of Trade Unions, popularly known as KOTU. On the other side is Pusetu, the Federation of Public Service Trade Unions. The grand prize is the right to host this year's Labor Day celebrations. KOTU may have assumed that having hosted celebrations in previous years, it had the upper hand, but not so fast.
There he goes.
At the Kenyatta International Convention Center, the country's second national trade union was being launched. The launch of Pusetu Kenya, presided over by the Education, Labor and Devolution Cabinet Secretaries. And if their presence here did not send a clear message as to which side they supported, their utterances certainly did.
The existence of a strong and recognized trade union is a prerequisite to industrial peace, with the main objective being the promotion of the interests of its members and to the greater national interest.
Many unions are joining us. Yesterday, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union came over. We welcome all that would like to partner with us.
This, even as in Mombasa, KOTU sang a different tune.
They will all come to Jesus,
maintaining that it would be in charge of the celebrations.
That haina shop stewards. Civil Servants Union haina shop stewards. Wasu ile ama lecturers wa university hawana shop stewards. Na hawatoki katika industries. Na siku ya Labor Day ni floats, mnakuja na ile vitu mnafanya kuonyesha leo ni siku yetu, na hizo vitu mnavyofanya viwandani vinabebwa na shop stewards. Sasa watatengeneza Labor Day aina gani?
KOTU has in the past raised questions about Pusetu's bid to host the celebrations. It held that Pusetu was not a legitimate union and argued that Pusetu had been sponsored by the government to create division among unionizable workers and therefore decrease their bargaining power. With the launch of Pusetu as the country's second national union, the ground has shifted, and KOTU is now proposing what it terms a satisfactory solution for everyone.
Kama wanataka kutengeneza Labor Day, let them be allowed watengeneza Labor Day yao. Yiko Nyayo Stadium, yiko wapi, wasije kuinterfere na Labor Day ambayo inatengenezwa na KOTU.
But with the right to host the Labor Day celebrations regarded as a sign of supremacy, will either side be satisfied with anything less than the whole prize? Wilkista Nyabo, KTN.
Oh, this next story is definitely a case of the tables being turned. Bungoma residents today cornered 4 suspected robbers, accusing them of being behind a series of killings in the area. Najma Ismail tells us what happened.
The angry residents of Bungoma were baying for blood, saying they've had enough of criminals terrorizing the town and villages in Bungoma. The mob alleging that the suspects were behind a series of murders in which night watchmen were targeted.
Na huyu kijana anajiita Jemo ameweza kuchinja soda hapa juu msikitini juu hapa kwa Kamau Uplands, na ambapo ilhali watu wamjuangi vizuri, wanasema ni chokora, lakini yeye si chokora, yeye ni Muganda, jambazi sugu kabisa.
It all started when the 4 suspects were seen grouping near a supermarket in the town in a suspicious manner. A security guard identified one of them and he raised the alarm. Several beatings later, police arrived, just in time to stop the residents from setting the main ablaze.
Maskari hawatusaidii kwa sababu mtu akipatikana hako na makosa, kitu ya kwanza wanataka umtetee, kitu ya pili wanataka labda aende huko ili wapatieko posho yao. Sasa upande wa huku Bungoma hatuna security ya kutosha.
It took the officers several hours to disperse the angry mob, and during the melee, one of the suspects escaped. A manhunt has since been launched. Najma Ismail, KTN.
Back to our continuing coverage of the security crisis, and if in view of recent events, many have asked, just who exactly is a terrorist, and why do Somalis and Muslims feel targeted in the war against terror? KTN's Patrick Amimo with some insight.
A UN security monitoring report says by 2012, about 609 Somali Kenyans, referred to as Kenyan Mujahideen, had been recruited by Al-Shabaab. The youth, after being radicalized, are said to have sneaked back into Kenya to champion the Al-Shabaab cause. Pundits say Al-Shabaab sympathizers have been using the non-Somali Kenyan youths to carry out attacks since they blend well with the general population and therefore harder to track. Between August and December 2012, 18 people were killed by explosives in Isli Estate and its environs. Between December last year and March this year, a total of 10 people were killed in Isli by explosives. The attacks left hundreds nursing injuries. Last week, the government started a security operation in Isli, which is referred to as Small Mogadishu, to flush out suspected criminals, aliens and Al-Shabaab sympathizers.
And it's unfortunate we have people who belong to that ethnic community who are Kenyans, genuine Kenyans living in this country. We also have genuine refugees who have all the rights to be in this country.
Lethome faulted the government's shoot-to-kill order in dealing with criminals and suspected terrorists.
I think a person or a suspect is more useful to the police alive than dead, because he'll be able to talk. Because I want to believe we have two categories of people. When there is an act like that, we have the planners, and then we have the executors or the foot soldiers. Why do you want to execute the foot soldiers before knowing who actually is behind this foot soldier?
The UN Security Council Resolution 1566 of 2004 defines terrorism as criminal acts committed with the intent to cause death or serious bodily harm to civilians or non-combatants, with the purpose of intimidating a population or compelling a government or an international organization to do or abstain from doing any act. The Federal Bureau of Investigations defines terrorism as the unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce the government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof in furtherance of political or social objectives.
Like what the Iran Republican Army was doing, that is terror. But nobody said that is Christian terrorism. But those are Christians. They are predominantly Catholic. But are there people who use religion to perpetrate acts of terror and crime? Yes, the answer is yes. Now, does that mean now the whole religion now supports that act? No, the answer is no. And that's why we are saying blanket condemnation is wrong. Like the Lord's Resistance Army, that's a terror group. Nobody talks about Christian terrorism. So we find there is that prejudice. You know, there is that prejudice. It's unfortunate. Many people commit these acts and claim we are doing it because of religion. And maybe that religion happens to be Islam.
Kenya has been caught in the confusion of whom to consider a terrorist and whom to consider a harmless civilian. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
So the United Republican Party has distanced itself from the majority leader Aden Duale over alleged remarks of the state profiling of Muslims, while Jamle Kamau, the MP for Kigumo, has lodged a complaint at the CID, and TNA has told the two leaders to sort the issue privately and not put it out as a matter as a spat in the Jubilee coalition. And on the big question tonight, we're asking, should Aden Duale, the majority leader in the National Assembly, be investigated for misconduct?
And do remember to let us know what you think. You can do that by sending us an SMS on 22155. You can also tweet us at Kachingira, at Ben_Kitili, and at KTN Kenya. Let's quickly take a look at what you're saying. One here from Victor Eddy, who says, yes, he should be investigated. Security matters are paramount. Regardless of who you are, the full force of the law should take its course.
Francine Alexia says, when the government does something for our sake, we criticize them. What do we want as Kenyans? To die?
One here from Jeff Jinakubwa, who says, though Aden Duale is representing the oppressed, he should allow the government of Kenya to carry out this screening process.
And Kibe DMX says, yes, no, Aden Duale is very right. It's true. Government is truly harassing the Muslim community. Why only in Isli? Well, keep sending your SMSs and tweets to us. Our number is 22155. Twitter handle at Ben_Kitili at Kachingira. and at KTN Kenya.
Yes, and we will have a poll result for you at the end of the bulletin. Right now, though, we take a quick break. Stay with us on KTN Prime. Why Migori and Tharaka Nithi governors will breathe easy, well, at least for now.
Hello.
Welcome and thank you for staying with us on the program. This is KTN Prime.
Let's tell you now what's happening in the courts. The Supreme Court has extended orders allowing embattled Migori Governor Okoth Obado to remain in office during the hearing of his petition. Also from the courts, Transport Principal Secretary Nduva Muli and his sister, Court of Appeal Judge Agnes Murgor, have reached an out-of-court settlement in the tussle over their late father's multi-million shilling empire.
Of the decision.
Migori Governor Okoth Obado has secured temporary orders from the Supreme Court, allowing him to remain governor as the Supreme Court considers his appeal against the ruling of the Court of Appeal. Supreme Court judges Justices Mohammed Ibrahim and Njoki Ndungu also cautioned Obado from making reckless statements while the case was pending in court. Professor Edward Oyugi had successfully petitioned for the nullification of Obado's election, objected to the new orders, telling the Supreme Court that Obado had not asked for orders to stop the intended by-election. The court will make its ruling on 23rd of this month. Still on the fate of the governors, the Tharaka Nithi governor will remain in office after the Court of Appeal dismissed a petition challenging the court decision that upheld his election. PK Mireti had gone to Court of Appeal seeking to overturn the High Court ruling that affirmed that Samuel Ragwa was properly elected as governor. The election of Beatrice Nkatha as Tharaka Nithi women representative has also been upheld by the same Court of Appeal. And an out-of-court settlement is set to rest the ongoing family squabble between Transport Principal Secretary Nduva Muli and his sister over the management of the multi-million shilling estate of their late father, former Attorney General Matthew Guy Muli. Nduva Muli and his sister, Appellate Judge Agnes Murgor, agreed before Justice Luka Kimaru to settle their family dispute amicably. The parties in the case say they had agreed over the weekend to settle the matter out of court. Winnie Kamau, KTN.
Thank you for staying with us. This is KTN Prime. It is 9:30. Time to take a look at what's happening in the corporate and economic world. I take you to the business studio. Bonnie Tunya is standing by. Bonnie, I understand the Nairobi Securities Exchange turned 60 yesterday. What should investors expect this year?
That's right, Ben. Other than the logo that has changed, Nairobi Securities Exchange is set to be listed so people can own it. And so it's going to be a separate entity other than just being a market. People can profit from it. But all that coming up in business.
The NSE remains buoyant in the face of terror threats.
My name is Bonnie Tunya. This is business. The Nairobi Securities Exchange turned 60 years old yesterday with promises of great things to come. But this could be a year of mixed results for the bus. Here's KTN's Adel Changole.
The threat of terrorism in Kenya continues to raise concerns over the state of the economy. Key sectors like tourism are on their knees as visitors shy away from Kenya's coast, which is a pillar of the industry. On the other side, the securities market continues to register mixed results.
We saw the returns for last year were good, but this year we've seen that the stock exchange has not been performing as well as it. We have seen the NSE 20 losing value, but right now we are stable at 4,900. Though in February we had reached the 5,000. We can call it the psychological mark.
In recent months, the market has witnessed a series of sell-offs, taking down with it the key market performance indicator, the NSE 20 share index. According to analysts, investors have offloaded nearly R1 billion worth of stock in a move that has seen foreign investor participation decline from about 60% in 2013 to about 52% this year.
The percentage of participation is at 51 to 52%. So yeah, we saw a little bit of net sell-offs, though with 51% they still hold a good share.
But while sectors like tourism have taken a direct hit, the Securities Exchange has defied the tensions, posting buoyant results and attracting increased participation at the beginning of Q2 of 2014.
The impact has not been that big, but in the long run, I believe it's not good for the economy and the NSE. policy.
What the investor is concerned about is a return on his investment, and the question is the underlying business sound?
Analysts also reckon the NSE performance will be lifted by planned listing at the market as companies raise funds to capitalize on Kenya's economic fundamentals. Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
National carrier Kenya Airways is banking on its Dreamliners, the first of the 6 which it received last Saturday, to make inroads in the Far East. Michael Karanja spoke with the man at the center of this expansion drive, Mbuvi Ngunze, who is the chief operating officer at KQ, on the plans.
This is a small one.
For Kenya Airways, the arrival of the new Boeing 787 Dreamliner could not have come at a better time.
It's an exciting time. Because, as you say, we have waited for the aircraft for long. But this allows us to really go into the second phase of the Mawingu expansion.
After a 4-year delay, the first of 9 Dreamliners touched down at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, giving the national carrier a new spring in its step as it charts its expansion phase. 6 more 787s will be delivered to KQ every month between June and November this year. This gives the national carrier the ability to retire its aging fleet of Boeing 767s. Add to that 5 more Embraer 170 jets that will also be retired, and one begins to get a sense of what the delivery of a new plane means to the airline and its business.
The first thing that drives the aircraft choice is the route structure and the network that you want to fly. So based on the network that we want to fly, we are able to determine which aircrafts come into the fleet and which ones go out of the fleet.
The 3 remaining Dreamliners to be delivered mid-next year are purely for expansion. With increased trade in the Far East, it should come as no surprise that 2 of the 3 new routes planned will be to China.
Now, you ask why was KQ not able to do Beijing and Shanghai before? It's actually based on the range and capability of the aircraft. So we could do it, but not optimally. But with the new aircraft that we are getting now, we are receiving the 787, we will fly direct to Beijing.
The delay has, however, come at a cost for Kenya Airways. Its main rival, Ethiopian Airlines, is already operating 5 Dreamliners, while Middle East carriers have swooped in, cannibalizing the African market. For KQ, the biggest headache now is to optimize its fleet, offering better international connections to maximize passenger numbers.
Our biggest offer is about our connectivity beyond Nairobi in Africa and the destinations that we fly, and that will give us some competitive advantage.
However, new planes do bring a whole new set of challenges. For starters, the planes need new captains to fly them, a challenge the airline continues to face, forcing it to put a stopgap measure by hiring expatriate pilots. Parking space at the already crowded JKIA is also another challenge. KQ is, however, cautiously optimistic that the work on Terminal 4, as well as the Greenfield Terminal, will work in its favor.
If these facilities go according to plan, then I am cautiously optimistic that for Kenya Airways will be in a good place from a physical infrastructure point of view, because that is actually what drives the quality. People will choose the hub based on the quality of the connectivity and the quality of the facilities there are. And we're in a competitive environment. People can choose to fly through Kenya, or they can choose to fly through other places.
With its ducks in a row, all that remains for the national carrier is to execute with precision, building its destination network to drive growth. Michael Karanja, KTN Business.
We remain the skies, and the government has heightened security levels at Kenya's main airports across the country. This is in line with increased terror threats that has been witnessed locally. Here is KTN's Philip Keitani.
Terror threats in the country have seen security forces stay on high alert. Key government installations remain under surveillance, and the airports too have improved tact.
Usalama wa kiwanja cha ndege hapa Mombasa kila mahali tumeimarisha sana. Kama mnaviona, kabla hujaingia kwa uwanja tunafanywa ukaguzi, na tayari tumeanza kupanua upande ya kushoto unapoingia kwa airport. Umeona tumeanza kufanya ile tunaita earthworks, sababu tunataka weka mjengo hapo wa kufanya security screening.
While Kenya's airports have not suffered any significant attack, previous threats has seen the public raising doubts on how the situation has been handled at the airports.
As a government, we will continuously evaluate the security threats and take corrective measures to secure passengers and facilities.
In October 2013, the African Development Bank approved an 86 million shilling grant to help enhance security at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. This was to include what is considered state-of-the-art detectors and X-rays machine.
We will have to bear with the inconveniences that this may cause to us, but it is necessary if we are to remain secure.
With a fire incident that nearly paralyzed operations at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in August last year, the airport has undergone significant renovation and upgrade. With the recent security lapses at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, the government is now assuring the public and visitors alike that security at the Kenya's international airports have been beefed up. Philip Keitan, KTN Business.
Now, away from the airport and things that fly, analysts indicate that plans by the government to exit the local borrowing scene could signal the fall of interest rates, but only in the short term. Here's KTN's Charles Gitonga with an explanation.
We have given clear instructions to Treasury that unless it is absolutely necessary, the government must find an exit strategy from borrowing in the local market.
The Deputy President's suggestion that the government ought to find a way out of the local debt market comes as a signal that the battle with commercial banks to lower lending rates has gone a notch higher. The banks currently charge an average of 18% on loans, and analysts reckon that the government's exit from local borrowing could be a short-term cure to the pain of high cost of loans.
But this will probably help, because then you'll have a lot of funding available for a reduced number of projects. So it will bring it down in the short run.
The government is optimistic about cutting down the cost of borrowing to a single digit in the next 12 months, stating that current figures are a barrier to investment. It has further urged corporates to cut reliance on bank loans and consider raising capital from the capital markets and other avenues. This, analysts say, will compel the banks to issue cheaper loans due to competition.
It will also provide as more like a kickback for local commercial banks to step up their game and to bring down their lending rates, because this will serve as competition.
Banks have quoted high cost of operation as the main reason why they cannot lower interest rates, despite the Monetary Policy Committee's decision to have central bank rates at 8.5%. This has seen the government's moral suasion consistently hit a hard rock.
For the bigger banks with huge current accounts, products out there, they're able to finance very low. But the mid-size and low-size banks, which depend on wholesale money, will probably find it tough to lower interest rates.
Charles Gitonga, KTN Business.
So here's a look at how the markets closed on Tuesday on the financial market report coming up next.
KTN Business in association with
Safaricom Business.
Jisot na Samsung Galaxy S3 Lite for 5,000 bonga points and 6,999 shillings. Available at all Safaricom shops countrywide.
On the day that Safaricom moved 13.6 million shares, making it the biggest mover, obviously. I have more numbers tomorrow. My name is Bonnie.
Thanks, Bonnie. Bonnie there with the latest in business. To our top story tonight now, the United Republican Party has distanced itself from its majority leader, Aden Duale, over alleged remarks of state profiling Muslims in the war on terror. But a section of Northeastern parliamentarians have backed the majority leader for standing up for the community. This comes as Kigomo Member of Parliament Jamle Kamau lodged a complaint at the Criminal Investigations Department to probe Duale over alleged misconduct. The matter has also triggered a reaction from the TNA party, that is URP's partners in the alliance, the Jubilee Alliance. In a veiled warning to Duale and other MPs, TNA has said leaders should desist from making remarks that only serve to divide Kenyans along religious or ethnic lines. TNA has also said the spat between the majority leader and the Kigumo MP Jamle Kamau should be taken as a personal issue, not a matter between TNA and URP or Duale. The party has asked Duale and Kamau to sort the matter privately without dragging the Jubilee coalition into it. And that story is the basis of our big question tonight. We are asking you, should Aden Duale be investigated for misconduct? And we have some responses, Nancy.
Yes, Ben, we do. One here that came in from Francine Alexia, who says, you know what, the government is doing the right thing. It's just an unfortunate coincidence that Eastleigh is full of Somalis.
Geoffrey Ngetich makes a point. He says all Muslim MPs are supporting Duale as sympathizers in Parliament. The issue of terrorism is thus bigger than it looks.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments, and do keep them coming. And you can do that by sending us an SMS on 22155. We'll take a look at the poll results at the end of this bulletin. You can also tweet us at Kachungira, at Ben_Kitili, that's Kitili with a double L, and at KTN Kenya. We are going to take a quick break, but when we return, we've got all the latest sports news for you, so don't go too far.